Hey guys, DibtheAwesome here to give you yet another Monster Legends guide, where we talk about monsters' moves, rune sets, partners, all that jazz. Today we are taking a look at the Cabbage Patch Junior Kid, Alpha Cliviast. That's right, Junior. I said Junior. Junior usually means it is the son, or the offspring of a former, or not a former or current living being on the planet. And this is the byproduct of Clivia. As you can tell by the looks of it, it kind of looks familiar of another monster, don't it? It's got kind of like an angular fish going on. What else is an angular fish? I do believe it's Enipiast. I wonder if people put the two and two together yet to actually realize this is a fusion monster. Like of those two things. I think it's painfully obvious, but yeah. I can just tell, like, this will be like a future breeding event. I already feel it, guys. I feel it. People like these two monsters would be a fusion combination. They would do that. They should do that because that makes sense. But yeah, this is the offspring of Clivia, who is a premier monster. It did inherit some of its skills. It also didn't inherit. It inherited some things. In other words, it didn't inherit the nature weakness. It didn't inherit that, but it did get some pretty interesting moves. However, the base stat distribution is kind of, it's meh. I'll let you guys decide on the comments below. But so far, it's alright. I mean, like, they're passable. I will say that they're passable. They're not like exceptionally boom. Wow, that's stupid broken. Then the stats in terms of base stats, he's not too impressive. I will say I was surprised by the base stat distribution. I didn't think the base stats would be, that of like old day legendary. This is like old day legendary stuff right here. So this thing's kind of got tank going on. It's got 1,000 more lives than its dad. It's got far less attack in terms of power. It's got far less power, in terms of his, with his dad. But I will say if you get this to rank 1, I will say that just kind of patches up by itself, and you can just run it as a normal damage dealer at that point. So we'll go in depth of what he does later, but I will say he did score a better trait than immune to death. He did score poison, immune to poison, which is a far better trait than insta-death. I'm not saying it's the best trait in the world. I'm just saying it's more relevant than insta-death. So yeah, let's talk about this monster. Is this good? Is it bad? I'll let you guys decide in the comments below. But let's get started. You guys came here to learn how to run your Alpha Cliviast, and I'll teach you today how to run it. Or at least how the appropriate, just the things to keep in mind, so you can go from there on how you should probably run it. So the power is 3,388. It is a really low base power, but if you do rank this up a bit, it doesn't really matter. Like, in all honesty, once you rank a monster, rank up at least to 3 or 2, you start seeing damage. You do start seeing damage because it's no longer a low base power anymore. It's that of, like, a ranked up attacker at that point. So you're fine. In all honesty, if you get this to rank 1 or 2, you're fine. You don't need to worry too much about it. I will say the build path is totally different from level 100 to up. I don't know if I would run full damage or like just make this the main damage dealer, simply because again at level 100 it's not really that ideal. I will say it gets patched later on, but again that's for any monster. But for right now, at the moment, if you just have this thing at 100 at the moment, the build path for it might be a tad bit different in terms of rune builds. I think the moves genuinely stayed the same. They might alter a bit actually, but yeah, the power, again, not so high. He does make up for it, though, due to the fact his base power on his skills are really decent. So he's got some really good base damage. I do believe he holds a 70 and a 50, I believe. I think those were, 55, yeah. So he's got some pretty good hittings, and he has like a stun poison, like for an AoE and single target. So that's really good. We'll go in depth to that later. Just know that is really good. Life is 31,667. This thing is a tank. This thing is crazy. Base life. That's a pretty good base life stat. Very good at stalling, as far as I'm concerned. If you do build this extra guy build with a life, strength, and speed, you'll see some good sustain for a while. He'll be out there for a little bit. before he goes down. Unless you're fighting like a fire team with a 130 Agursus, then this thing will light up like a Christmas tree. Which is always, it's funny because he always has that light right there. uh, Speed is 3,421. Not a very fast monster in terms of. Well, it's an alright speed. It's pretty good. I'm saying it's like dude. I think this is frostbite speed, right? I think this is like pretty close. I think it was like 432 though, right? Like for frostbite. No, it was 421, wasn't it? Right now I'm just kind of debating at this point. But it is. I think it. Yeah, it's 3D speed. It's frostbite speed. So it's not a bad speed. I'm kind of just over exaggerating it. But in terms of modern deniers, I will say it's not all that fast. We've been getting monsters though way over the 465 limit. It's just going to be outpaced by too many things, especially if you're dealing with ranked up stuff. It's just not that fast. I wouldn't recommend running full speed and running it as a denier. I really don't recommend that. It's not a good idea unless you're fighting similar level grounds, and then you can run full speed on it. You can bring it to those fights, but for the most part, you shouldn't be running full speed on it. I really don't think it's a good idea. But it's an alright speed stat. Honestly, this is an alright speed stat. If you're fighting something that you know doesn't have this base bat speed, and you have the better ruins, you can totally run them as a denier. What else? Trait poison. We talked about it. This is really relevant. I will say it makes it so the common DOT for the element doesn't really harm its damage or harm his life. So that's really good. Its relics are sword and amulet. I've seen some pretty good amulets. I think one of them is, was it? I guess I don't know if it's a shield of tenacity or not, but I really don't know what the relics are for the amulets. I could have sworn there was one that did like an AOE shield or something, or a power boost. I think there was one where it increased your power and speed. That would be really good for it. In all honesty, that would be extremely good for Alpha Cliviast. I think that's like Osir's amulet. That's a legendary amulet. So far, I haven't seen a good silver amulet. I don't think. So that's a thing. Swords are only good when you see gold and legendary ones. So that's a thing too. So not too many good usable relics here, if you're just starting out. Uncontrollable pollen. This deals 50 damage to all enemies and applies possession to all enemies. So you get them for one turn. If you get your ultimate, you get a possession, AoE possession. That makes it so they're all yours, unless they have immune to possession. Then you have them. This is a really good. Skill. I do believe this was the only thing Cliviast actually inherited from any PS species. Like, in all honesty, I think that's the only thing that it inherited from, because he shares nothing else with any PS. This is his only relatable skill to that monster. Everything else he inherited either by his dad or just something brand spanking new that he just decided to do by himself. He's like, hey dad, I can do this cool thing. Watch. But yeah, this is a good deny skill. There's one skill in Skill Boost 1 I will really bring up. It's this 40 damage skill that is spammable. It is 100% lifesteal, so basically, in fact, all of his skills are 100%, so whatever damage you do, you basically get that back. If you bring a monster that does Nature Weakness, this might be a good option against cooldown teams. If you know you're going to be dealing with cooldowns activations, this might be something good to put in your pocket so you can absorb the damage that you take. I will say if you run things that give immune to, just immunities, like all 3 immunities, like Bowtie, I will say that will make this man the happiest monster in this game. If this guy can get his turns in without getting denied, he loves that. In all honesty, he loves, in the case of the event, he takes damage. He can recover that back. No skin up his nose if he had one. I don't think he has a nose. But this is a option. I'm not saying it does the most damage. I'm saying it's spammable, and if you receive 100% of your life back, 100% of the life that you deal. Not all of it back. I mean, just the damage. Whatever you do in damage, you get that back. So if you do double damage, you just get more life back. Paralyzing Venom deals very heavy nature damage to one enemy, applies poison and stun to one enemy. So you not only do you just deny the enemy, you also poison them at the same time. So on that first turn, they're stunned, and then they take 10%, and then the next turn they take another. So that's 20%. You've done 20% life already to them, plus the whatever the 50 damage from this. So that's really good. To just straight up deny somebody, do like DOT damage turn 1. And then next turn they take another 10%, and they haven't even touched you yet. And you have 2 skills that give you lifesteal. I will say in terms of 1v1ing, this guy's really great at it. Absorbing Nutrients, this is a 1-turn cooldown, 55 damage skill. That's 31 stamina. You recover 100% of your life back. In all honesty, that's might as well just forget this first notion of just running. You could possibly run this skill. Just run Absorb Nutrients, because by the time this is up again, you probably take some form of damage, and you can actually use it. So this is a good option. This is a good skill. I'd probably consider running this once I ranked it up a bit, or not just in general. If you rank up this monster, then I recommend running this skill, because at that point he'll have a good base power. He'll have something to work with. Inject toxins, clear. Oh, and then this clear. Target will die after 3 turns. This is a single target skill, 0 turn damage, 27 stamina, 2 turn cooldown. So this is the other special thing he does on his own, like insta killing. I don't think the Cliviast himself got an insta kill skill. This instantly kills someone after 3 turns. I'm on and off on running this skill. I'd probably run it. I'm not in terms of this one, but he gets like an AOE later. I'm kind of on and off about it because of I guess it depends on the situation. But you really don't need this one specifically. You really just don't need. It's a 3-turn death counter. It's a 2-turn cooldown single target skill. It's really not that good. It doesn't even do any initial damage. I don't find it useful. I prefer personally would just run the AOE insta death if you want to be all insta death fancy. Venom Spread. This is it's AOE. It's 45 damage. Really good base. I was surprised at the base damage of this. It does poison and AOE stun. This is really good. You poison everybody and you stun everybody. That's really utilitative. That is extremely good. So let's say if you ran team speed with this monster, you apply, your freezing or possession with that first monster. They get their turns in, and then Cliviast goes, and then you do this. You've now stunned everybody, poisoned everybody. And now your attacker can do whatever, and you just win. Let's see if you're running Barbatos too. Like, let's say the Barbatos is on your team. The damage you do is stupid. For one, the damage you do is stupid. 2, you have way too much DOT on them. They're just dead. Nothing should really live through that onslaught unless they were packing life runes and they were packing like a 130 Agrisis or something tanky, really tanky, like really beefy defense comp. They were just like they weren't planning on getting turn 1, and they were more so focused on tanking and sponging. Realistically, you will kill a squishy team with this combination. You just will. It's just too much DOT damage and it's too much deny. I recommend this skill. This is a must-have in all sets. Red Chlorophyll. This deals massive special damage to one enemy, gains as much life as damage dealt. This is 100% lifesteal, 70 damage, 2-turn cooldown, 37 stamina. I will say this is runnable on all sets. It's got a really good base power. So even if your base power right here is relatively low, the fact that this is pretty much ult damage makes up for it. I recommend this on like regardless of whatever rank it is or whatever moveset. It's just too good of a move not to have on it. It's damage. It needs it. It's special based. It's good. Toxic Spores. All targets will die after 3 turns. As you can see, he also didn't really inherited any. Not inherited. He didn't inherit any self buff. He didn't inherit a single one from Cliviast. Cliviast has like 2 self buffs that increase his healing or his damage potential or removes negative effects. He didn't inherit any of that. Like he didn't inherit any of that. He just got like just the new stuff. Plus, he picked up the lifesteal from his dad. This is I will say this is 100 times better than running injected toxin. So personally, I think the build it. Personally, I just straight up if you just absolutely hate insta death, you would run this skill. Honestly, if you didn't, it is an insta kill. It's good for killing things like cryotan teams or things that just you will not kill even if you tried to your heart's content. The problem with running the skill though is like the opportunity to fight something that can just straight up remove negative effects. There's really no point to even use this move if you're fighting something that just removes the positive effects or negative effects. I mean, so examples would be Invar. If you're fighting an Invar, odds are they'll do that, and you won't get this done unless you have like an AoE possessor. You possess them, and the Invar does the life regen first. You will not get this off if you're fighting Lux or Incognita or I'm trying to think of another, light monster that just removes all positive effects. You won't get this off if you're fighting Telekuhu. Telekuhu will easily clear this off. Easy, easy, easy. He's got like, you can have up to 2 clear, remove negative effects. I do believe it's just a bunch of, in all honesty, a bunch of supports just kind of remove negative effects. Yelitri, specific monsters that remove negative effects in the nature category. Uh, Yelitri, Living Forest, Oikawa. I honestly like this nature monster. I think it's really good. He can actually remove negative effects off himself. I would say out of all the tanky monsters in the game, his is actually one you would actually run, simply because it heals you by 30%, removes all negative effects, and gives you double damage on your next swing. He can do that. I do believe Nadia does it. Nadia has possibly a remove negative effects. Boom, 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 boom. I think that's it in terms of nature monsters. So that's. Does Lamu? I don't think Lamu did it. Yeah, Sarah. There we go. No, wait, no, Sarah doesn't remove negative effects. She applies the immunities. I know that much. I don't know if Petroloa did either. But that's the gist of it. Those are a few nature monsters that remove negative effects, which would be counters to him. Personally, I wouldn't run it in general. I just find it unreliable. I say it's only reliable for tank fights. If it's good for Igursis, it's good for Cryotan, it's good for Oros. And being the fact people are walking around with 130 or none Oros Igursis, this wouldn't be a bad idea. And here's why: if you like, you could, for one, if you know you can't out damage like the 130 Oroses with the heavy plates or the tombs plate, all those ridiculous defense items, this is a good go-to because so as long as you kill the thing that removes negative effects, they're done in 3 turns. If you can survive 3 turns of an Igursis or Oros onslaught, or like Skyatan onslaught, you kill them. This is basically, you only ever use this skill when you know you can't kill them. You just straight up can't do the damage, you can't do the DOT damage, they'll heal it up too fast. This is the skill you use. I will say the skill is very worthless on Samuel. Samuel has a AoE remove negative. I do believe it removes all negative effects, heals, and gives life regen. So yeah. So yeah, that's a thing. So here's the build I would run. I'd run Venom Spread, Red Chlorophyll, Paralyzing Venom, and Absorbing Nutrients. Realize I literally just said both of his inherited lifestyle skills and 2 of his 2 of his own original moves of Denying and Poisoning. That's the build. That's his best move set. I would run him. Like if I just had let's say I just had this at 100. At 100, this thing doesn't do me any good in any of the wars I'm in, so I would actually run Team Speed, and honestly, I would run, if I just had this at 100, I would run Team Speed. That would be my first go-to thing. I would run Team Speed with this monster. Full Team Speed, life, and 2 Team Speed. If I wanted to, if I was possessed, if I did consider it, maybe I would take out the Paralyzing Venom, because this is a 3-turn cooldown. This isn't a really good cooldown in terms of what I'm about to say here. I would replace Paralyzing Venom with Toxic Spores in the case of the event I do need something dead that I know I cannot kill, I would run the skill. That's when you use the skill. It's when you know you can't kill them in 3 turns. You just know they're just gonna be there for the longest of time. This is really good against, again, Cryotan, Gersis, what have you. You would run the skill. So again, I would, for one, if this was at 100, I would run team speed on it. I just would. That's just how it is. It's the base stats at that moment at 100 just don't seem all too appealing to me. I would just run this guy as my extra guy. I would run either that or the extra guy build. So basically, there's 3 builds at level 100. If you only have this thing at level 100, I recommend the extra guy build, strength, life, and speed. This enhances all of his base stats. It's just really good overall. I would run full team speed. I would run a life and 2 team speed. And those are the 3 builds I recommend, just simply by his nature, simply because you want them to have turns in. It doesn't hurt for them to have turns in, because either A, you're doing the AoE insta-death, you want them to have turns, or you want the poison to soak in. This is a 4-turn poison, mind you. This poison lasts for 4 turns, and on the first turn they are stunned. You really just want the enemy monsters to go before Alpha Cliviast, so you can just deny them again, get that poison up, what have you. I personally think that just to get the maximum effect at 100. I will say once you hit later levels, you can run him like a normal damage dealer at that point. That's absolutely 100% doable. So you can run him with 2 strength. I will say 2, like if you get him to rank 2, that feels more natural. I will say that. But if you can get that started, if you get him to rank 5 at the very least, you can start running him damage, because when you get him at 105, he gets a normal base power stat. That's workable. That's doable. 3,542. That is in the realm of doability. So you can run 2 strengths and a speed at that point. I really just don't think it's worth it. The first time you get them. When you get them at level 100, I don't think running the 2 strengths and a speed is all that good on them early on. You gotta wait till you rank them up at least once or twice. Then you'll start seeing results. I will say, once you get them to rank 1 or 2, especially rank 2, you'll start seeing damage. You'll start seeing that he can do fine damage now. It is all right to run him damage at that point. But I will say for the first level or 2, or the first rank or 2. No, not the first rank or 2, like 0 to 1. Like in that range. If you have this at 0 or 1, you should just run him either like full team speed, a life and 2 team speed, or extra guy build. That's my recommendation. I think that's his best build in terms of those level ranges. Once you get this man to rank 2 and up, you can run him however you want. In terms, you want him full on damage, you can. That is acceptable at that point. His base skills do more damage. His 50 and 55 damage do way more damage. Just the damage they need to start doing due to the fact they're low bases. 70 will get a huge boost. It's worth it at that point. Once you get this guy to rank 2, he'll have 3,696. That's easily more than enough to work with. It's easily workable at that point due to rune scaling. Once this guy hits that level, the rune scaling will go smoothly. But yeah, that's the build for that monster. Monsters I recommend pairing this up with. I recommend things that, 1, remove all positive effects. That's very useful for it. Things that can reactivate his cooldown. So like things like Bowtie. I will say Bowtie. Once you get this guy to rank 2, run this guy with Bowtie. And people will get mad at you. People will be not too happy to see that defense. No, that's not a good defense. I mean, like, putting this thing on defense isn't a good idea, because it's not immune to anything to begin with. But an offensive, if they see their offensive log and they see you pair this thing up with Bowtie, oh man, that was a jerk. That's a jerk thing to do. Because this thing can't be denied anymore, and you can just go around stunning, poisoning, just being a menace all around, and really not caring about a thing in the world, which is funny. Other things that go with them, burstier monsters. Well, again, in like Barbatos, for example, Barbatos goes so good with this monster. Razul goes so well with this monster. It really doesn't care if you, especially again if you have this at rank 2. Razul you really want to care if Razul took like 50% of its life, because again he has that life steal. He can easily get that back. No Grave Cigar, easily replenishable. That's a reference to League of Legends, by the way. Okay, like Noah Grave Cigar. Uh, but yeah, that's how you would run it. That denier, of course, would have to be a freezer or possessor. You don't want him to, obviously stun, and then he'll just miss his stance to stun. So ideally, a freezer and or a possessor for that denier. I think ideally Kihaku. If Kihaku's coming up in a breeding event, and he's so easy to do in terms of breeding recipe, I really recommend pairing it up with him. In fact, that combination is stupid. Just straight up, if you were to freeze and possess everybody, and just did the insta death. Kihaku can easily control people for 3 turns. That is not a chore for Kihaku. Kihaku can easily keep people tied down for 3 turns easy. That's doable. That is extremely doable. You wouldn't even have to run any damage as far as I'm concerned if you wanted to just do a stealth comp at that point. If you are running Kihaku and you are running Alpha Cliviast, first thing you do, AoE deny. Then you go to Cliviast, AoE, insta-death, and then that third monster can apply like stamina regen and kind of count back what you're lacking in. So probably something that is immune to possession that can activate cooldowns. Lamuna is a good one. Dungeon Master, what have you. I think a magic monster would be good for that last slot, just because there's a lot of monsters immune to possession, or abomination monsters. That also works. Just so as long as you can keep them busy for 3 turns. All you need to do is keep them busy for 3 turns, and then you win the game. That's how instant death works. Once turns passes, they die instantaneously. There was no fight. There was no, chance of repelling. They're just dead after 3 turns. The only catch is you cannot let them remove the negative effect. You cannot let them remove negative effects. So you have to make sure that the support especially doesn't do anything in that span of time. You really don't need them to do that. And that's everything you need to know about Alpha Cliviast. I hope this video is helpful to you. Overall, I think it's a decent monster. In all honesty, this is a really decent monster, especially when it starts to bloom, once it starts to rank up. I believe at that point, you start seeing more wonders out of it. But when it's at 100, you get the basic stuff. I will say it's decent. It's decent at 100. Preferably if you rank it up a bit, it does get scarier. It gets very scarier when you rank it up, especially to rank 2. You will start seeing damage, you start seeing deny. And that's everything you need to know about Alpha Cliviast. I'm DibtheAwesome. If you have any questions, talk to you guys later.